Hello everyone and welcome to Ticker.com's news channel on YouTube. On this channel, we review stock markets, discuss financial news, market trends, and economic data from Wall Street to Global Street. So let's dive in. Global markets reacted to the US inflation, interest rate decision in the euro area, and economic data in China. While inflation is slowing down around the world, prices are still rising at a faster pace than preferred by central banks. Policymakers are struggling to create an appropriate response to stubborn and elevated inflation without dragging the economy into a recession. Let's start reviewing the U.S. economic data. Overall inflation accelerated to the second month in August to 3.7% from 3.2% in July, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported Wednesday. The inflation picked up following the increase in oil prices in the last 2 months and weaker comparison from the previous year, and cost of transportation services picked up in the month. Core inflation, which excludes energy and food prices, slowed for the 5th month in a row to 4.3% from a year ago and rose to 0.3% from the previous month. Producer Price Index, which is a measure of wholesale inflation, in August rose to 0.7% from the previous month, faster than 0.4% in July, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported Thursday. From a year ago, the Producer Price Index increased a 4-month high of 1.6% and Core Index rose 2.2%, the weakest level since January 2021. The two inflation reports indicate that the prices are still rising at a faster pace than preferred by the central bank. In other words, policymakers have still some work to do. Retail sales increased 0.6% from the previous month in August, faster increase than the downwardly revised 0.5% rise in July. Retail sales are adjusted for seasonal factors but not for prices. Despite higher prices and rising costs, consumer spending continues to rise, supported by higher wages. Sales at gasoline stations increased 6.2% after gasoline prices rose 10%. Retail sales, excluding fuel, food services, automobiles, and building materials, increased 0.1% in August. On a yearly basis, retail sales rose almost 2.5% in August, slower than 2.7% in the previous month. We now review economic data from Europe. The central bank policymakers lifted rates for the 10th time in a row and added inflation is likely to stay too high for too long. After the increase, the ECB's main refinancing rate rose to a 22-year high to 4.5%, and deposit rate to a new record high of 4%. Marginal lending facility rate was revised higher by the same amount to 4.75%. But the accompanying statement from the ECB also left door open for rate pause, and policymakers said that they will like to review cumulative effect of rate hikes on the economy. In other news in the region, the euro area economic growth was revised lower to 0.8% from the previous estimate of 1.1%, the European Commission's summer 2023 economic forecast noted. The Commission also lowered its 2024 economic growth outlook to 1.3% from the earlier estimate of 1.6%. Economy in Germany is expected to contract 0.4% in the current year and recover by 1.1% in 2024, and France is expected to slow to 1% and rebound to 1.2% in 2024. Wages and salaries in the euro area rose 4.6% in the second quarter from an upwardly revised 4.9% in the first quarter, Eurostat reported Friday. Rising wages showed persistent inflationary pressures in the economy, but wages rose at a slower pace than 6.2% inflation rate, suggesting real income is still declining. Italy swung to a trade surplus of 6.4 billion euro in July from a deficit of 0.5 billion a year ago, the National Institute of Statistics or ISTAT reported Friday. German wholesale inflation declined for the 5th month in a row, the Federal Statistics Office or the Statis reported Tuesday. German Producer Price Index declined 2.7% in August from a year ago because of a 15.8% decline in mineral oil products after prices eased from elevated prices compared to the previous year. The UK jobless rate rose to 4.3% in 3 months to July from 4.2% in the previous 3 months, the Office for National Statistics reported Tuesday. UK weekly average earnings, excluding bonuses, rose 7.8% from a year ago to £617 in the 3 months to July 2023, the Office for National Statistics reported Tuesday. In other words, the wages are rising in the UK, which is supporting the retail sales growth, which means that the price pressure or inflation pressures are still very strong in the UK. We now review economic data from Asia. Japan's Producer Price Index, a measure of wholesale price inflation, declined for the 8th month in a row. Producer Price Index in Japan rose 3.2% from a year ago in August, slowing from a downwardly revised 3.4% in July and dropping to the lowest level since March 2021. China's retail sales and industrial output expanded at a faster pace after the government stepped up stimulus measures. China's retail sales growth accelerated in August to a 3-month high of 4.6% from a year ago, after increasing at a 2.5% in the previous month, the National Bureau of Statistics reported Friday. Industrial production rose 4.5% in August, following the 3.7% rise in July, the Government Statistics Agency reported Friday in a separate report. India's consumer price inflation slowed in August, and wholesale price index was negative for the 5th month in a row, but decline was the smallest in the period. We now review the financial markets around the world. The People's Bank of China warned currency speculators and said that the central bank is ready to defend the yuan after currency dropped to a 16-year low of 7.35 in Friday's trading last week. The yen traded at about 147 against the US dollar for the second week in a row after the short-term US Treasury yields advanced following the worries of a rebound in inflation. The yen briefly rebounded against the US dollar but traded near a 25-year low after the Bank of Japan's Governor Kazuo Ueda left door open to lift rates higher if inflation rebounds to 2% level on a sustained basis. The dollar index, which tracks the prices of US dollar against the major currencies, and extended weekly gains for the 9th week in a row and rose to a 6-month high on the expectations of higher US interest rates. The euro dropped to a 6-month low after the ECB raised rates for the 10th time and signaled a possible pause at the next meeting. Stock markets in Japan, Europe, and India gained, but market indices in the US fell after rising for 3 weeks in a row. China restricted new issues listing from September to support the advance in broader market indices. Crude oil prices rose to high of 2023 and extended gains for the 3rd week in a row, after Russia and Saudi Arabia extended voluntary production cuts till the year's end to bolster oil prices near the target level of $90 a barrel. We now review stocks that are moving up and then stocks that are moving down. The UK-based SoftBank-controlled ARM Holdings sold 95.5 million shares and raised $4.9 billion at $51 billion market capitalization in its initial public offering. Adobe Inc., the graphic design software developer, reported fiscal 3rd quarter results that matched investor expectations. European automakers traded higher on the hopes that the EU tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles imports may provide a sales boost. AMC Entertainment Holdings said it completed a secondary stock offering announced a few weeks ago and raised $325.5 million through the sale of 40 million shares at an average price of $8.14. Westrock agreed to merge with Smurfit Kappa and form one of the largest packaging companies in the world with $34 billion in annual sales and about 65% of the revenue based in the Americas. Casey's General Store, the retail chain, reported better than expected quarterly results. Apple Inc. announced a slew of new products, including iPhone 15, at an annual product event. James Smucker, the maker of peanut butter, jelly, coffee, and pet foods, said it agreed to acquire Twinkies maker Hostess brand for $34.25 a share, or $5.6 billion, including debt. Tesla soared 7% after Morgan Stanley analysts cited significant improvement in the company's autonomous vehicle software development and supercomputing project. Qualcomm said it will provide modems for smartphones made by Apple through 2026. Apple is still having difficulties in putting its modem together, so it's still relying on Qualcomm. We now look at the stocks that have moved down. Nucor Corporation, the specialty steelmaker, forecasted 3rd quarter earnings to decline primarily because of lower prices and falling volumes. General Motors, Ford Motor Company, and Stellantis were in focus after 12,700 United Auto Workers decided to strike at 3 key assembly plants, asking for higher wages and other benefits. Delta Airlines joined American Airlines, Spirit, Southwest, Alaska, and Frontier Air and lowered its profit estimate, citing higher operating and fuel costs. Oracle Corporation dropped 10% after the database company reported weaker than expected license and hardware revenue in the fiscal first quarter. RTX Corp declined 7% after the company said it plans to take a pre-tax charge of $3 billion in its current quarter because of the issues related to some of the Pratt & Whitney aircraft engine manufacturing that powers Airbus A320neo. We now look ahead at the economic calendar, and investors will review the U.S. housing market data, inflation data in the euro area, the UK and Japan, bank lending growth in India, and loan prime rates in China. That's all for today, and we will see you next week. And you can read daily market updates on ticker.com, tickerfunds.com, and 123jump.com.